Good afternoon. Welcome back to Aruba ClearPass and AOS8 integration hands-on lab series. In this session today, we will do the use case number 2, Aruba AOS8 guest Wi-Fi Captive Portal login with controller initiated workflow. In this lab, as usual, the firmware version we are using in this lab is the same as the previous lab. The VMM and VMC running 8606 and ClearPass running 693. The physical network diagram, just to show you for a reference. So just in case if you need to set up this one in your own lab, so you know how to do the connectivity of this component. The logical network diagram is quite important, and it shows the L2 and L3 connectivity. So when you do the configuration and you want to cross-check, double-check the naming convention of the CPPM, VMM, VMC, or IP address planning, everything, and even the SSID detail configuration. So please refer to this page. And if you notice, right, DNS server we are using in this case, we have two local DNS server, 172.25.29.41 and .42. These are two window domain controller we use in this lab also. All right, so let's find out what is the Aruba Captive Portal login with the controller initiated workflow, and the ClearPass in this case it could be the Captive Portal server. So to make it simple, and objective of this lab is to help us to understand the controller initiated workflow for Captive Portal. So we will do the simple lab in this session, where we have the visitor connect to Wi-Fi. In this case, is AOS8 Wi-Fi, and they will be redirected to Captive Portal, where the visitor have to enter the pre-configured guest account username and password and hit login to be able to authenticate to the Wi-Fi and have the internet access after that. So as you are aware of, beside the controller initiated workflow, ClearPass, ClearPass also support another workflow called server initiated workflow. So it is very important to understand pro and cons of this each workflow to be able to use when you are doing the project deployment. So one of the key thing when you do the controller initiated workflow is that, right, you see, right, the visitor, the first time it will need to associate or connect to the Wi-Fi, and then the NAD network access device or the controller in this case, it will do the MAC address bypass or MAC address authentication request is sent to the ClearPass CPPM, and then the ClearPass CPPM will return with the guest log on row if this is first time visitor connect to this open Wi-Fi, or when or their account is already um, already expired, or they need to relog in again. So when visitors see this one, right, they will be assigned to the guest log on row from the Aruba controller, and under this row there is the Captive Portal redirection configured. So the controller will redirect the visitor to the landing page, which is to the guest Captive Portal login page from the ClearPass guest, right? So in this case, right, the key point I wanted to highlight here is that under the ClearPass, actually you have two separate modules. The first module called ClearPass CPPM, or stand for ClearPass Policy Manager. This module handle the radius server, TACA server, endpoint profiling server, and for the communication with the third party. Right, and the second module is the ClearPass Guest module. This module is to handle or to host a captive portal, support different captive portal workflow, and also this guest module to host the Aruba onboarding. So later we will in next session we will do the onboarding. Then you will find out in the detail. Right. Okay. So now at this stage, right, the visitor will see the login page. Once visitors see the login page, what they need to do is they need to key in the username password in this simple workflow. To complete the login form means after they key in the username password, they will hit the login button. So when they hit the login button, the request it will send to the ClearPass guest, and basically the ClearPass guest will push down so-called a script to back to the browser on the of the visitor endpoint. And once the browser receives that script, it will do the HTTP or HTTPS post to the CN of the certificate configured under the captive portal. So mean in this case, it will post to the CN certificate of the controller. So when controller it so controller is configured in the software to intercept any HTTP and HTTPS request sent to its own cert CN. So when the browser from visitor endpoint do this HTTP post to this CN of the cert on the controller will intercept and it will capture the username password, and then it will initiate the reader's request, so-called reader's access request, sent to ClearPass CPPM for authentication. When ClearPass CPPM receives this reader's request, it will do the authentication, and depends on the configured policy, it can do the authorization, and it will return back the so-called the access accept to allow the client go in. At the same time, it also return the guest role. So once the controller receives the guest role, it will change from the guest log on role, which is a captive portal role, to the guest role. So of course, this guest role need to be pre-configured on the controller with the privilege or with the firewall rule to say that user belong to this guest role, they can only access internet and they will be denied from access any internal network, right? So later we will find out the detailed policy configured for this guest role and guest log on role. So once at this stage, visitor can access internet. Okay, so this will be the two SSID we will try into this lab session. The first SSID is a guest open. Basically, this is a legacy way we are doing until today. And as you are aware of, when we have WB3, so in WB3 we have one so-called enhanced open, so-called OWE. So this enhanced open, it is the enhanced version of the current open SSID. Basically, it provides the same user experience, means user don't need to provide any key. They just click to that so-called enhanced open SSID and the endpoint, which also support WP3 enhanced open associated to the SSID, and then the both the endpoint and the Wi-Fi AP it will negotiate to have the session key, and the traffic between the endpoint and the AP will get encrypted. Right, so that is the benefit of the enhanced open. It is a new standard under WB3 compared to the standard open SSID, which is the traffic is not encrypted from the Wi-Fi level. All right, please take note this could be the list of the IP address as well as the credential to log into your ClearPass, your VMM for the configuration. Now let's start with the configuration. I also assume that we already done the part 2A use case 1. So from part 2A use case 1, we already done the VMC cluster configuration. We already done the VMC VRP IP address configuration, and we already created the Redis server as well as the Redis server group. So in this step, right, we don't need to do any so-called those that we already done in the use case 1. Okay, so we can start directly go to the user role configuration under the MM. So let's go to the MM, log into MM with username is admin, password Aruba at 123. Under LAN cluster configuration, we need to create the user role, okay, which is our first step here. Now we need to have two user role in this case. The first user role is for the guest log on with Captive Portal redirection. And the second user role is a guest role with the full internet access after user authenticate to the Captive Portal. So the way we do is we just use grp8 guest, and then we create another one called grp8 guest logon. So under the guest, this is where we need to define the policy to only allow the guest to have internet access. So we just make it simple by allow two important service, which is the DNS. It is a predefined ACL or firewall policy and DHCP. All right, and then from logic, after we allow these two so-called important services, then the next one, if the user try to access the internet network, we will deny. So we need to create a new policy. We call it deny internal. And after that, we will permit any. Okay, so under deny internal, we need to set the policy to deny any access to internal, right? It means that we need to configure the firewall policy to say that source, user, destination, network, right? We can key in the internal network range here, right? Another way is, so if you want to so-called avoid doing the manual, have to define so many range, you can do the alias here, right? But of course, when you do the alias, you have to define the alias first here. So let's say in this case, I just do simple network, and I know that the internal network is this range 172.16.00.255.240.00. So this entire class B private IP subnet. Action will be deny. Okay, let me try again. Okay, source, user, destination, network. I can choose any. Okay, 172.16.00.255.240.00. Deny. Service any, right? Deny. Then we submit. Okay, this is the first policy. Second policy, I will deny a second range, which is the 192.168 destination network 192.168.00. So this is a class C private IP subnet. Deny, submit. And of course, the last range will be the class A private network 10.0.0.0.255.0.0.0. Action, deny, and submit. All right, so basically for this one we already know, but um, so means when the user they already assigned into this role and they try to access any of this private IP range, they will get deny, right? So now we push down the policy down to the VMC 1 and 2. Okay, so let's take a look at the guest role configuration again, right? So the next step we need to do is the guest log on role. Now, to create the guest log on role, it is important to create the captive portal policy, right? And also we need to define the policy to allow so-called the user to be able to reach to the ClearPass when they are under this role, right? So to make it simple, now I will create a new so-called alias. I call it CPPM IP. All right, so then here I will add all the CPPM IP address into this list. 8.61, 125, 8.62, and 69. 69. So these are the three IP address of the ClearPass, right? If you just forgot the IP address, you can always refer back to the logical network diagram here, right, for the detail. So we can see that the ClearPass is ending with 61, 62, and VIP 69. All right, so we already have the alias of the ClearPass IP address defined here. So next step, we need to create the policy, right, to allow the user to have access, I mean the guest user under this logon rule access to ClearPass. So there's two ways to do. We can predefine policy here and later we add to the row, or under the row we can create the policy and then we directly, right? So let's try this one. Switch to advanced view. Now, first of all, we just allow DNS as usual, allow DHCP, okay, and then we will have the so-called Captive Porter policy, right? So now we just allow these two policy first. Now important for Captive Porter policy, don't go to here to don't go here to configure Captive Porter. You go to here under more authentication. This is the one, right? Means before we can configure Captive Porter for this role, we need to create the Captive Porter profile. So Captive Porter profile can be configured under authentication, L3 authentication, and Captive Porter authentication, right? So we can create the new one. We call it um, CPPM Captive Porter, right? So the default role in this case, we should switch to the role we define for this one. Okay, leave it user login to allow login. Now in this case, we will try to do HTTP authentication because of in this case, I don't have the so-called HTTP public cert on the ClearPass, so I will use HTTP to avoid the cert warning, right? So I will just leave it there. Now, um, it is important to configure the login page. So login page, it could be under the ClearPass Captive Porter. But for now, we don't have we haven't configured the ClearPass Captive Porter yet. So we just leave it here, just leave it default like this one later. After we done the ClearPass configuration for Captive Porter, we will come back here to configure the login page here. Right, it is also important to uh, enable the add such IP address in the redirect URL. This one is for COA purpose. All right, then we submit. Okay, go back to our role and policy. Go back to this, let's log on, show advanced view, more, authentication, and Captive Porter profile. This is a new one, right? And apply. Remember, we haven't completed Captive Porter profile yet because we haven't configured the ClearPass yet. So we come back here later. One more thing is that when the user they are under this role, we need to allow the user to have to have access to the ClearPass Captive Porter, so the user can see the Captive Porter from the ClearPass. So we add new policy. This we call it allow CPPM. Submit. All right. So under this policy, we go here and create the new access control. Destination. Now we can choose the alias because of we already configured CPPM IP in the previous step, right? So action is permit. In fact, for the service, right, you don't need to permit anything. There are there are two services required for this one is HTTP and HTTPS, right? So that's why you only need to allow these two service. So you can choose under here service and choose the service called web Let's go down and choose the web here, service web. So basically, service web is it is included HTTP and HTTPS, right? Action permits submit. Okay, so that are the so-called simple policy we define for um, guest log on row. Okay. Now, next step, right? We need to go to the ClearPass guest to create the captive portal. Let me duplicate, and under here I go to ClearPass guest. So as I mentioned, this is a CPPM and this is ClearPass guest. They are two different, right? Under the configuration, under the page, web login, right? So web login just provides simple, login page. If you want to know, if you want to configure more complex workflow, for example, self registration, then you have to go to this option to create the new captive portal, right? So for now, we just go to here and choose the web login and create the new web login page. We name it, right? Let's name it Part 2A, use case A, use case 2. Okay, the page name, I put it the same. Now, vendor setting, leave it default Aruba. Controller, login method, like I mentioned, in this case, we will try the controller initiate, not the server initiated, right? Now, address, this is a tricky point. By default, when the user hit login, it will submit the HTTPS or HTTP request into this CN. And we have to make sure that the address, I mean the FQDN we configure here is match the CN on the controller. So later we need to check the CN on the controller and we configure here, right? So we just leave it default first. Security hash delete default login form credential. It means that it will require using the password. Pre-auth we choose the local. It means when user hit login, so the ClearPass guest will try to check the ClearPass local guest using a password to see whether it's have or not. If it's not predefined, then it will throw a error message. We can tick here to allow to request the user to key in a term and condition. So after user login successfully, this is where we can force the user to access to this web page. So in this case, I will force the user to see the arubanetworks.com homepage. Now, skin in this case, right, I will use the Galleria skin by, by default, right? So later we will do some customization on the skin. It is very easy, right? Okay, so this with the message it will show when the user hit login and it is in the progress to login. So now for the controller initiate, the login delay you don't need to configure so high. You can leave it by 0, but based on my experience, you leave it 3 seconds is good enough. This one means it's you allow time for the controller for the browser to complete the login process, right? The rest other setting we leave it by the we just leave it there and save and reload. Now this is the important thing, right? So when we do the controller initiate, like I mentioned, the browser will do HTTP post to the CN, which is the CN of the cert from the controller. So we have to make sure that this one it is a CN, right, common name of the cert on the controller. So to find what is the CN name of the controller, we can go here, log into our controller. Please take note, it is not the it's not the it have to be the MC, right? 51. All right, so this one can roughly tell you you can go here and it will throw you the error. So can you go here and you check. Right. So by default, as you notice, right, the when you set up the Aruba MC, it will create the cell site cert with this cn secure login.arubanetworks.com, right? So this is exactly the same one that we have it here. So we don't need to change, right? If for those who want to know more in the detail where to change the cert, you can go to under the LAN cluster, under the system, right? Certificate. So you go to particular controller, right? Sorry, it should be under admin or general. Let me see. Okay, it's here. So server certificate, it is using the default, right? Um, so if you have the new cert, when you import the cert into the at the MC, then you can change the cert from here, right? So now it uses a default cert, which is cell-site cert. Okay, so now we already know that this is the correct CN name of the controller cert, so we just leave it there, and we will save change. Now, as I mentioned, right, in this case, because I'm using the cell-site cert, so I don't want to see the cell-site cert. So instead, I do HTTPS login. Now I will try to use HTTP login instead. So to do that, right, after you configure the web login, you need to go to authentication under the configuration of the guest, of the ClearPass guest, and uncheck this one, right? Save. Okay, so means when you do this, when the browser submit the communication from the browser into the Kati portal, it will not use HTTPS, but it just use HTTP, right? This Please don't use this one in the production environment. In the production environment, make sure you have the public cert installed on the ClearPass and the public cert installed on the controller, and then you can use fully HTTPS. Okay. All right. Now, this is our so-called Kati portal login page launch. So as you can see from here, this is going to be the page that it should show to the user when they connect to the Wi-Fi. So if you notice here, right, the IP we are using here is 61, which is the publisher IP. Now we already configured VRRP. We can change this IP to 69. Yeah, it still work, right? Okay, and we can use HTTP. Let's try HTTP in this case. Yeah, it still work, right? Because we allow HTTP. Now you can copy from here to here, Control C, go back to the controller configuration, authentication, L3 authentication, Kati portal, this one. Remember in this step, login page, right? I shared in previous step. This is where we put in the page that so-called Kati portal page, which is hosted on the ClearPass. And you also notice, right, I don't use HTTPS in this case. Like I mentioned, for this lab, I try to overcome the cert warning issue, so I just use HTTP instead of HTTPS. Submit, push down the config to both VMC. Okay, so basically, that is completed for the first step we do user role. Now, next step, we move to AAA profile, right? So for at the same time, we also completed this step for the ClearPass guest, right? Now go to AAA profile configuration. We will go to here, define it under here. Okay, we will say that this one is for open, right? We choose this one, submit as AAA guest open, right? Let me try to see if I use correctly. All right, guest open. Now this is just a profile name, so I just want to name it meaningfully, right? So initial role. So when first time user connect, right, it should assign the user into this role, which is a guest log on role, right? And for this default role, you can assign this one, right? But actually, we're not really leverage on this one. We will leverage on the role return from the ClearPass, okay? And we turn on the roaming accounting, interim accounting, submit. No one acts authentication. We will not turn on this setting because of this is an open SSID. So we only need to turn on the MAC authentication, right? So let's leave it default. Or if really want to do some changes, you can go here and you can do it MAB, right? Rename it. And down here you can enable the re-authentication, right? But for now we don't need to turn it on. And some workflow, if you want to use the re-authentication timer from the ClearPass for some advanced workflow, like for example, if the customer said they want the Kati portal log in with MAC caching, but they want the MAC caching only up until 6 p.m. for example, then you need to leverage on this one to return the remaining timer so that at 6 p.m. the controller will do the re-authentication and it will move the user back to the Kati portal role, right? So my authentication server group, we choose this one, ClearPass, we already configured in the previous step. Accounting, same, we choose this one. RFC, right? This one it's required for the Raider COA. Just add 3 IP address here. Okay, so we just finished the AAA profile for the guest open, right? Uh, at the same time, we do for the second SSID, AAA guest OWE, right? And down here, we can use the same role in this case, right? Because of the workflow we are using is the same workflow. So the rest other setting are all the same. No diff. Okay, and we push down the configuration to both VMC. All right, so we have just completed the AAA configuration. Now we move to the next step to create the SSID profile. Again, same SSID profile is fall under System, Profile, right? Wireless LAN. SSID, it is here. Now we will create a new profile for two SSID called SSID guest open, right? Now this is the real eSSID name broadcast by the AP. It will be GRP8 guest open. Because of it is an open SSID, so we just choose the encryption is open system, right? And click submit. Okay. So we just do some fine tuning like I mentioned. I remove the search for 5 GHz and remove 1 and 2. Enable search for 2.4, right? Um, that's all. Submit. So we have done the guest open SSID. We can just push down the configuration to VMC1 and 2, and then we can create the SSID for the enhanced open. Just go here, submit as SSID guest OWE, right? Save, change the name OWE. Now this one is enhanced open, so we need to choose enhanced open. Now important. Enhanced Open, it will be backward compatible by default because of it is the op mode transition is turned on by default. So this mode is turned on to support the client or endpoint, do not support the Enhanced Open under WPA3. Right, save and push down. So we just finished the SSID configuration for both. Now next step, we will do the Vlan ID and Vlan mapping. In fact, right, this step we already done. So we use the same Vlan ID, which is 2908, right? So let me highlight this one. We already completed. But of course, in your real deployment, you might need to use a different VLAN ID for the guest, right? So now configure web virtual IP profile. Under here, you go to virtual IP, create the new one. Web guest open V2908. Submit. Okay, so it's here. The RF advanced. This one just leave it default. Right, default setting. Now under AAA profile, choose the guest open. AAA profile submit. Under the SSID, choose the SSID guest open. Okay, push down config. Okay, so we just completed the first virtual API for Open SSID. Now we will create a second SSID for Enhanced Open, right? Web guest OWE. So I just copy from the guest open web, right? So AAA profile, I will choose the OWE, submit. SSID, I choose the OWE. All right, submit. Push down configuration. Okay, done. So we completed the virtual AP profile. Then the next step is we will just assign this virtual AP profile to the AP group. So under the AP group, go to the LAN we created in the previous lab. Under the wireless LANs, we assign those new SSID into this AP group. Push down. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the configuration on the VMC1 and 2. Make sure that the configuration is pushed down to read, right? So show APE SSID. All right, so you notice that this is the first SSID for guest open, right? But you notice, right, for enhanced open, it will create a hit so-called hidden SSID for enhanced open. So this SSID only be used for the client support WBA3 and it is invisible for the normal client. So means for the client do not support enhanced open, it will only see this SSID. For the client support enhanced open, they also can only see this SSID. But when they click to associate to this SSID, in fact, this hidden SSID will be used to negotiate between the client and the AP, right? For session encryption. Okay, so we check the second one should be the same. Show AP SSID. All right. Okay, so we're done for the VMM configuration, right? We move to the ClearPass. So ClearPass, we do the ClearPass guest configuration first. So basically, we already done this one in the previous step, right? And now we need to just create a one guest account for testing. Now to create the guest account, we go to the ClearPass guest, not this one, under here, right? And we can under the manage account, we can create a new guest account here. So we can say that guest one company, HPE, email guest1@hpe.com. Now, the email address will be used, right? Will be used for the login purpose later. So you can, so actually for testing, you can use any email address, right? Account activation now expire 1 day, so I just leave it for 1 day, and this is default password. Account role is guest, just leave it there. Create. Now, sometimes I say, I don't want to use the default password because I always forget the password one. So I just go to here after account is created, I go to edit and I can change the password from here. Type in a new password. I say 12345 6. 12345 6. Session limit, I type 10 to allow 10. Session limit update. That's all. Okay. Um, Okay, so we already have the guest account created, contributor configured properly, and then we go to CPPM, right, which is a ClearPass Policy Manager. Go to here. Now, we just leverage on the wizard, right? Okay, so under the CPPM, we will go to the service and template wizard, and we will choose the guest authentication with MAC caching. Okay, so let's we go to service templates and wizard configuration, and we choose the guest authentication with the MAC caching. So let's name it use case 2 CP controller initiate next. This is the NAD and wireless SSID. In this case, we can change it later, but so for now we just enter it like GRP8 guest. Okay, next. Just say 1 day for employee, guest. Sorry, 1 week for employee, guest 1 day. Contractor don't need to specify. And next. Voucher check, no. Next. Aruba row enforcement. So we will return a row. A row we configure here, which is the GRP8 guest lock-on, right? So this got reported as a GRP8 guest lock-on. Maximum number of device, let's type 10. Uh, device per user 10. This one we just leave it default. Employee access, we just say that guest employee. This one guest, right? We just name like that. So later we will change. In fact, right, in this test we not really need to do for employees. So let's try this setting. Service. Okay, so we have the new service called, Copy Porter. The MAC authentication tablet is a MAC auth, and the second one is a readers enforcement, right? So let's move these two services on top. All right, save. Now we need to go here and do some so-called fine tune. So for this one, right, to match this service, we will not choose equal, but we will choose contain or start with, um, end with, begin with. Right. So our guess open and guess, yeah. So we just match the SSID begin with like this one. It means that it will match both guess SSID. Authentication, allow all authentication, so leave it default. Authorization, leave it default. Row mapping, leave it default. Now down here we can change something here, right? So for first time when user log in to this so-called MAC auth, then this is a packaging row, we just leave it there. But if the user don't have the packaging row, then we will give them the so-called copy porter row, right? But for copy porter row, we just need to match any, so we just key in date, date of week, uh, um, this one belong to Monday to Sunday, okay? So basically if the guest user have the MAC caching, they will get access directly to the internet. Means the controller will return the guest row. If not, it will return the guest log on row. Right. So just basically uh, that is the logic. However, this name we will change right under enforcement profile. Let's save. Under enforcement profile, I will go here and I change this name. So this one it's so instead name it so long like this one, I just say row, right? Easier. Okay, save. And then the guest profile, I just say this one is GRP group 8 guests. Now guests are open, right? So it means that we will have two so-called two row we need to configure here. GRP8 guests open, right? Row. And another row is depends on SSID, right? We will return another row is OWE, right? So we go here, I just copy this one, and down here I modify the settings. So I just say this one is OWE, chain OWE, right? So these are all these two settings. Now and then I can come back to the service, the Mac org, right? Check this one. Okay, let me see. We have one more guest profile, which is here. All right, so I have to change this one also. This one is GRP8 guest open, and under here we change it to GRP8 guest open row. I think this one already been configured. So let's say row 1. All right. Okay, so let's go here and search for this. Actually, the second one, row 1. Okay, so this should be the correct one. So let's say we use a row 1, so we remove this one, and we use a row open, right? Open, we also use that enhance open OWE row 1, so we return OWE. So I don't need this. So it's doing the match catching. Okay, so let's go back here and anyway, um, let's just maintain that one just in case we need it later. Right, OWE. So if you notice, right, there's the only difference is that the row one it returned together with the IETF username attribute, where the row doesn't have that attribute, right? Go back here and go to here and take a look. Enforcement profile. So we have very clear, right? So it means that when the user they do the MAC authentication, it will return the correct row, and at the same time, so instead showing the MAC address, it will return the name. Okay. Now let's take a look at this radius. So basically, for this radius, it will hit when the user hit login, right? So down here we go into start with or begin with, right? And authentication, it will be the PAP. So leave it there. Authorization, leave it there. Role mapping, no need to change, leave it there. Now this one we can do some changes from here. Okay, so down here, right? Uh, right. So before we do, right, we need to create some row also. Now we create two new rows, GRP8 guest open and GRP8 guest OWE, right? Now these two rows we create because of, remember, we have two SSID and we are using the same policy. So we need to make sure that the user we have, when they connect to different SSID, that we have the different role, then we can apply different enforcement profile, right? So under here, mapping rule, we can add a new rule here, say Aruba name, ESSI name equal to GRP8 guest open. Then we assign the guest open, right? And if Aruba name and equal to grp8 guest OWE, Then we assign the row name called OWE. So now we already get, so we use SSID to differentiate the row, right? Then under enforcement profile, now when user have the MAC caching, right? Copy one more rule. And we add one more condition to say that if the row match all, and we add one more row here is grp8 open, right? So means when the user connect to the open SSID, then we will return the row 1, open row 1, right? But if the user connect to SSID, enhance open means GIP8 guess OWE, right? This SSID, then they have this row, and once they have this row, we should return a different so-called row back to the controller, right? So this is how we can leverage on the SSID. Even we have the two different SSID, but you can have single policy. Of course, you always can create two separate service for two different SSID. It is possible, right? Okay, so we save this one. So this is for the Mac org. Okay, so under the Raiders authentication, where the control where you just hit login. Again, same, we will do the role mapping here at the rule called Aruba and name equal grp8 group guess open, then guess open, and we can just copy this one, right? And under here, edit the rule. This one is OWE, then you just assign OWE row here, save. Okay. Enforcement, right now under enforcement, this is where we need to optimize our configuration. So we can copy the second rule. Now the first rule we will hit where the user connect to the not equal. Now we change to match all, right? So it did have the guest row and have to open this row. Then we will return, but in fact we don't really do the bandwidth limit, so we can remove this policy. Session limit, catching, timeout, expire, not really. Post login, not really. So in fact, we just leverage on the catch session timeout, catching session limit, and MAC catching. Right, actually, the MAC catching is the most important policy we need to make sure that it's always have to be there. Okay, do this. Let me remove this one, right? And go to here, copy a new rule, and edit the rule. Change this one to OWE row, and then under here, right, you remove this row and change it to the OWE row. So right, so it will return to the controller grp8 guess OWE row when user connect to OWE SSID, right? Save. Okay, so this is how it works, right? So like I mentioned, right, the most important is guess MAC catching enforcement profile. So let me show you what does it mean for that. Under the profile, right, guess MAC catching. This is the one. So basically, it helps to so-called to record the guest user, the where they have the MAC so-called the guest user information to the endpoint database for the MAC catching purpose. It means that when user log in at the same time, right? When user log in to the captive portal during this, let's say one day, if we define here policy here, after user log in and subsequently when user re-log in again, right? Let's say they go out for lunch during this one day, right? They don't need to re-log into captive portal again. This one to improve the user experience, right? Okay, so that's all. We already done the configuration. Now let's do a quick test on that. I go to my client. Okay. So if you notice, right, I belong to group 8, but I use a client group 7 to test. That because of my group 8 client do not have the Wi-Fi adapter to test. Okay, so down here, the first step I will do is that I will connect to the open SSID, right? So it will be GRP8. There are many. Okay, here. Connect to here, right? So when I connect to here, it will start to connect to the Wi-Fi, right? And get IP address belong to subnet 2908, which is my group 8. While waiting for it to connect, right? Let's go to ClearPass to see if we see any. So as you notice, right, there is a one request coming already, and let's see what the ClearPass return. All right. So if you notice, right, it will return this guest log on row. Okay. Right. So now user is connected. So let's try to see if the user can, uh, you know, you can see the Captive portal from here. So let's say I go to a page called intel.sg. Okay, so nothing happened. So means something wrong. Right, let's go to do some troubleshooting, right? First of all, we need to make sure that the client have the correct DNS server setting. So I go to here, ipconfig, uh, all. Okay, so this is the one. The DNS server is there, correct. Something not right, right? You notice, right? Users not supposed to go to be allowed to go to internet, but somehow it allowed to go to internet. So let's see why. Route print. Okay, so it should go through this path, right? Because of the default route point to the Wi-Fi adapter have a lower metric. Okay, so let's take a look at the row we have under the controller. Now we have the guest log on row here, right? Okay, let me do this, right, to make sure that I don't have any so-called wrong default route. Go to Wi-Fi adapter. I will purposely remove the default route of this network. This one not required you to do in the lab session. I will fix this one, right? Let's remove this one. Remove this one. So this is a wired adapter. This one for our RDP session. Okay. All right. So let's take a look again at the setting here. The reason even I remove, but we still can have connectivity, that's because of I have some static route. So this one is for your VPN, right? So let's do IP configure route print. Okay, so now it's quite clear and it's only have one default route point to the Wi-Fi adapter. Okay, so go to here and we try again. Intel.sg. Oh, I still can access. Now, take a look at our setting of the policy. Okay, first of all, I go to the controller, I check the user, show user table. So when you check user table, you see that it associated to VMC1 as a primary, right? VMC2 it will be as a backup or standby. Show user we will not see, but you show user standby, we will see, right? Okay, so let's take a look at this row. What happened, right? Show right. Uh, GRP8 guest log on. So let's take a look at why we can access internet where we are under this row. Okay, so basically we only allow DHCP, allow um, DNS, right? That's all, and we are also allowed to access to ClearPass, right? To see the Celtic portal. Okay, so let's take a look at show alias. So net destination. It's for alias, right? We check the CPPM IP. Correct. So these are only 3 IP address. Okay. One more thing. Okay. So now we see the control have IP address belong to this VLAN. So redirection have no issue. Okay. Okay. Like go back to our policy and we take a look again at our setting. All right. At the same time, right, I go to one of my working controller and I check what are the setting. I do it under this lock on row. So this is very good when you have a lab always ready for you to to do this kind of check-in. Okay, so I go to my row here. I call it AOS8 lock on row here. Let's see what are the policy I configure here. All right. Ah, you notice I missed out the Cutty Porter policy, right? So I have to go back to the row here and go back to guest log on, advanced view. Okay, now I go and add that Cutty Porter policy, right? Submit. All right, so if I go to another page called yahoo.com, now revision is working now, right? Great. So I will go to the controller. Let me close this one. Go to the controller and I check the client right status. Right, so it's under this, it have this row and the ClearPass. Let's see, is return correct row or not? Yet, yes, it is, right? It's return this row. Okay, so now we will use the guest account we created here, guest1 at hpe.com, password is 12356, and we test. You notice, right? I'm using the HTTP, not HTTPS here, no secure, right? So I use guest1 at hpe.com, password 123456, accept term and condition, login. Right, so and hit login, it will start to do the HTTP post, right? And I'm supposed to be able to have internet access, but somehow I still got this issue. You go back to login page, and I believe it is very common error that when you first time do the multi-portal authentication, you face this issue. You go back here and you check on the ClearPass, right? Now on the ClearPass, you notice, right, we don't see any request coming at all, which is something not right, right? So let's try one more time. Guess1 fp.com 123456. It's supposed to have the request come in, right? Login. Okay, now this is the issue. Like I mentioned, because of we do HTTP post to the controller, but the controller do not so-called the browser do not trust the self-censored from the controller. So why we see this error. So this is something very so-called tedious kind of thing when we use the controller initiate workflow, and our controller don't have the public cert, right? Try one more time. Login. Right, still have issue. Okay, now the issue is that so we are stuck at the first step where the browser try to post to the controller, but the controller not accept, right? So let's go back to our Cutty portal. We see what is the setting we do here. So you notice, right, where we choose this one, the script sent by the copy porter down to the browser, it will use it will use HTTPS by default. But like I mentioned, right, we are using the HTTP for this testing because we have the public cert, right? So that's why now we will just choose an option to say send clear text password over HTTP. Means when we choose this, when the browser run the script sent by this copy porter, it will not post to HTTPS, but it will just do the HTTP, right? So we save. Now we can test again, okay? Go back here, we need to refresh the page, or we can just close it, you know, and try again, intel.sg. Oh, this one is catch. Let's open the new browser. to make sure that you can open the incognito mode, right? This one, make sure it's no catch. So it's will redirect to this one. We try again, guess 1 HPE, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you notice, right? What happening now? You see there's no HTTPS post at all, but we still have the authentication fail. Okay, interesting. Now, we are still facing the issue where the controller not really do any so-called HTTP post, right? HTTP post so do not initiate the reader's request sent to the ClearPass. So that is the main issue. So we need to look at our Captive Portal page again. So we use this one. Use user login, correct. We do the reaction post. 10-second login page. Show what can lockout pop-up. User login. Okay. So look like it's correct one. Server group. Oh, sorry, this is my problem, right? I configured this one, but I haven't specified the ClearPass as a radio server. So that's the reason why I don't see any requests coming to the ClearPass at all, right? So this kind of mistake we always make, even for myself. I done so many times, but I still make the same mistake. Okay, let's try again. Guess 1hpe.com. Okay, and try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Accept term and condition. Login. Okay, still have the issue. Now let's see what the message to see here, right? Now we have the request coming. So this is the proof that the HTTP post from the endpoint browser to the controller successfully. So that's why the controller send request to the ClearPass, reader's request for authentication, but it do not hit any service. So you see there, no service alert, fail to classify request to service. It means that we need to take a look at our current setting. We suppose this request to hit this radius enforcement, right? But what are the conditions we match here? We say it have to be calling station ID have to exist, so we need to check that one. Calling station ID, okay, it's there. And connection MAC address not equal to username. Check. Radius username is this one, and connection MAC address is under here. This one. So they are not equal. So this one match. Now the Aruba this equal to. Now this is a problem. It's not equal, right? If you take a look at this one, it is not equal. It is if we say equal, it have to exactly match. But our condition is we just want to match the start, right? Begin with. So we have to change the equal to something called begin with, right? It means that we only match this one because we want to use the same service for both SSID, and the different thing is the third part, right? So like that, save, done, right? We can try again. So this is how powerful and how easy we can use a ClearPass for the troubleshooting. Okay, so try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, enter. Ta-da! Successfully, right? So this one, it will delay here in 10 seconds. This is the default behavior on the controller. So you can change this behavior if needed also, right? So go here. So you see when you press login, this is what it will do. It will do the list of the action, right? It will do the, um, you know, the MAC catching. So this is three things important, right? Catching, and then these are just the so-called the additional action that we not really need that one. So later we can remove those settings, right? Okay, so if we take a look at the endpoint database, right? This is the computer, and if you notice under attribute, you see the MAC catching here. So what does it mean? Like I mentioned, if you purposely disconnect this one, or even from here, right, you do the COA to disconnect the user, make sure they are clean, right, and you reconnect the user back to the Wi-Fi, what will happen? Connected without any copy portal. You can go to Intel.sg. Okay, no issue. Why? That's the reason. That's because of the MAC caching policy we have. So when the MAC caching, the user we have this row, MAC caching row, and under our MAC address authentication, we will do the we will just return this row without the so-called the guest log on row. That's what the user have the directly have the internet access, right? Now, there's few thing. If you notice, right, when first time user log in, it show the the 10 seconds delay because of it's here. So you can change to one here. So it's to shorten the time, or you even can um, yeah, you can just change to 1 second, right? And let's try again, right? When you change to 1 second, to try again, you can go here to remove the so-called the MAC catching attribute. Just go here, remove these three, right? And as I mentioned, right, in this policy configuration, we not really need to have any other sort of fancy thing compared to what we, you know, just a MAC catching attribute. So because of that, right, under here you can remove session timeout, you can remove session limit. You can even remove the, update endpoint and endpoint node if you want also, but I just leave it there, right? So to make our policy, cleaner. Those other settings it will be used in other workflow, but not this simple workflow. Okay, save. So our policy is much simpler compare, right? Okay, so we already removed the so the caching, so we can trigger the COA to clear the session on the controller. So when we do this, right, the user will be enforced, you see, to log in again. So second time we try, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right, log in. So this time you notice, right, it will not stand there for just 1 second, then we go. So it could be better user experience in this case, right? Now another thing, right, another thing I would like to share here is that now endpoint, we remove the caching again. That is to optimize or to customize the the Kati Porter page, right? Let me do the COA, submit. Okay, so right, so you see that it will ask to go in the Kati Porter again, right? So we just close this one. Now this is the default so-called the Kati Porter. So when you do the POC, right, you may not want to keep this Kati Porter because of it's not so good in terms of experience when the customer when you do the POC. So when you do the POC, you should do something that you should use a background image that close to it should be the customer you know company background. So notice that we are using the skin here is Galleria skin. So we can go to that Galleria skin to do some so-called customization. So go to plugin manager, skin plugin here, and this is the one. Go to configuration. Now you can change something here, right? You can change the color, things like that, right? But one of the things you can change here is the background image, right? So now to do the change the background image, I do something. I will go and get some of the background image, right? The good one I have. Let me see. I search for my Aruba. I have some of the nice background image here. Let me see if I can find it. Um, okay, look like I can't. Never mind. Let's go to Google, search something. Let's say I search for Aruba background image. Okay, so it shows some very nice photo, right? So let me download just about recommendation, you need to get the photo with a high, high definition, right? So let me choose. This is first photo. This look very nice. I will take this one. This is just full HD, but save image as, say, image one. Put it under the download. Okay, then let's take one more image. Wow, this one really nice, but I like this one more. Okay, so take this one, second one, save image as uh, image two, right? So three image will do, right? It's the third one. Okay, so save image as image three. Okay, so one have three image, right? First of all, you need to do is you go to the configuration under the content manager, public file. You need to upload those image into this one, right? I create a new folder called background. Create folder, and under this background, I upload the new content. I go to download the three image that I just download. Right, this three one. First image, upload. Okay, second image, upload, and the third one. Okay, so I have three image uploaded to the ClearPass. Next step, I will use this three image in my background, right? So I go plugin manager, skin plugin, I go to Galleria skin configuration. Now I go to here and I change, right? All right. Okay, so you may ask the question. So what could be the right so-called the background image that I can use here? I mean the path to go to background image, right? So to know that one, you can go here and try to insert one of the background image number one. So this one will tell you that it come from public, you see, background image number one, right? So I just copy this one, put it here, two, three, because of image name, I name it in this way, right? And then you can just remove this image, right? And remember to remove this one, okay? All right, so let's do a transition. So every 3 seconds, it will change the background image. Save. Okay. So once you're done already, right, you go here and you refresh the page from the client. You see it changed, right? Image already changed. But the problem you see, right? The photo, the one of the photo I choose is do not really have high definition. That's why the quality is not really good, right? But this one just to show you that if you choose the photo don't have high quality enough, you will face this challenge. Okay. All right. So that's all for this session. So we done the session, the use case number 2, AOS8 and guest Wi-Fi portal login with controller initiate workflow. And thank you for your watching.